Hey, everybody, and welcome to another Deep Dive with us.
It's great to be here.
I'm so excited to dig into this topic today.
Me too.
Yeah.
This is something that I get asked about all the time.
It really is, and it's something that can feel like a huge obstacle for English learners.
Absolutely.
Moving from understanding English to actually speaking it.
Yeah. You can read, you can listen, you can understand.
But then you try to speak, and it's like...
Yeah, and you freeze up.
Yeah, your tongue is tied, your brain just kind of short circuits.
Exactly, and it can be so frustrating.
So today, we're going to unpack not only practical tips and techniques,
Yes.
but we're also going to delve into the fascinating brain science.
Ooh, the brain.
This challenge, yeah.
I love it.
To help us on this deep dive, we've got an awesome 3-part podcast series all about speaking English.
3 parts, that's a lot to dig into.
It is. It's a pretty deep dive, but it's packed with so many great insights.
I'm ready.
So let's jump right in.
Okay.
One of the first things that stood out to me from this series was this idea of why speaking is often so much harder
Okay.
than understanding a language.
Yes, it's a common struggle.
And the series uses this really interesting analogy of the piano
Oh, a piano, okay.
to kind of illustrate the difference between passive understanding and active speaking.
Okay, I'm listening.
So imagine you're listening to someone play the piano beautifully, right?
Okay, beautiful music.
You can appreciate the melody, the harmony.
Right? I can follow along.
You can even maybe hum along.
At my feet, yeah.
But that doesn't mean you can suddenly sit down and play the piece yourself.
No way, that takes a whole other set of skills.
Exactly. It requires muscle memory coordination
Yeah, finger dexterity.
and hours of practice.
Right, and it's the same with speaking.
Exactly.
You can understand all the words and grammar, but actually producing those sounds and sentences fluently.
Right.
It's like you have to train those language muscles.
I like that analogy, the language muscles.
Yeah, you got to work them out.
We need to hit the language, Jim. So another key point that the series really emphasizes is this idea of the translation trap.
Oh, the translation trap. I've heard of that.
It's so common.
Tell me more.
So it's this tendency to think in our native language and then translate every word or phrase into English before we speak.
Okay.
And I know I do this all the time.
Oh, yeah, me too. It's like our brains are on autopilot.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like you're constantly flipping through this mental dictionary in your head.
Right, and it slows you down so much.
It doesn't. It makes your speech sound really unnatural and hesitant.
It's like you're driving with the parking brake on.
I love that analogy. That's a perfect way to describe it.
It just doesn't flow.
And so the series really advocates for this idea of thinking in English.
Thinking in English instead of translating, yeah.
But how do we actually do that?
Right, that's the million-dollar question.
It sounds kind of intimidating, right?
It does, but it's totally possible with the right strategies.
Give me the secret.
Well, one of the most effective strategies the series talks about is creating an immersive environment.
Immersive environment.
Even if you don't live in an English-speaking country,
Right.
you can still surround yourself with the language.
How do you do that?
We'll listen to music, watch movies, listen to podcasts, read books.
Okay, so all the fun stuff.
Exactly, make it enjoyable.
I like it.
And even little things like changing your phone settings to English.
Oh, it's a good one. I've never thought about that.
Yeah, it's all about constantly exposing your brain to the language.
It's like building that mental library of English phrases and expressions.
Exactly. The more you immerse yourself, the less you'll rely on translating, and the more natural your speech will become.
That makes sense.
It's like you're training your brain to think in English.
Yeah, it becomes less of a conscious effort and more of an automatic process.
Exactly.
You know, I remember when I first started learning Spanish,
Yeah,
everything felt like a puzzle I had to solve.
right.
But after spending some time in Spain, surrounded by the language, it started to click.
That's awesome.
I could understand and respond without constantly translating in my head.
That's the goal right there.
And it felt so much more natural and effortless.
And more enjoyable, I bet.
Absolutely.
So we want to get to that point with English.
Yes. And so it sounds like it's all about rewiring our brains.
It really is. It's like creating new neural pathways
Wow.
and making English a more natural way of thinking and expressing ourselves.
So instead of struggling to translate every word, we want to reach a point where English phrases and sentences just flow naturally.
Exactly like a river.
It's almost like building a mental muscle, right?
It is, and like any muscle, it needs regular exercise.
So we need to hit the language gym.
We do, but before we dive into specific techniques, there's one more mental hurdle
Uh-oh, a hurdle.
we need to address.
Okay, what is it?
It's something that often prevents learners from even getting started with speaking practice.
Is it the fear of making mistakes?
You got it, the fear of sounding silly, being judged, or simply not being understood can be paralyzing.
I think it's especially hard for perfectionists,
Yeah.
like myself.
We want to get it right.
We want everything to be perfect.
Yeah.
And the idea of making a mistake
In front of others especially.
can be terrifying,
It can be, but here's the thing. Mistakes are inevitable.
even for native speakers.
Even for me.
You make mistakes.
I do. Everyone does. It's part of using language.
So instead of seeing mistakes as failures,
Yes.
we should embrace them as part of the process.
Absolutely. Mistakes are valuable learning opportunities.
How so?
Well, every time you make a mistake, you're highlighting an area where you can improve pronunciation, grammar, vocabulary.
So it's like feedback.
Exactly. It's showing you what you need to work on.
And the more we practice and make those mistakes in a safe environment,
Yes.
the less daunting they'll feel in real-life conversations.
Exactly. Practice makes progress.
So it's all about shifting our perspective.
It is.
And seeing mistakes not as setbacks, but as valuable feedback that helps us grow.
Exactly.
And hey, if you're saying that even you make mistakes,
I do.
that makes me feel a lot better.
We're all human.
Exactly. So I guess it's time to ditch the fear and embrace the messiness of language learning.
Yes, embrace the mess.
It's all part of the fun, right?
Absolutely. And speaking of fun, let's explore some practical techniques.
Yes, let's get practical.
That can help you build your speaking confidence and fluency.
I'm ready.
One technique that really stood out to me from the series is called shadowing.
Shadowing. Okay, I've heard of
Have
this.
you ever tried it?
I haven't, but I'm intrigued. It sounds a bit mysterious.
It's actually quite simple, but incredibly effective.
Tell me more.
It's like a vocal workout for your English,
Okay, a workout.
where you mimic a native speaker's pronunciation, intonation, rhythm, and pacing.
So I choose like a piece of audio or video.
Yes.
Maybe a podcast, a movie scene, a TED Talk.
Exactly something you enjoy.
And I try to speak along with the speaker, mimicking their every sound.
Exactly. You become their vocal shadow.
Ooh, I like that.
Following their lead and absorbing the nuances of their speech.
So it's about more than just getting the words right.
It is.
It's about capturing the rhythm
Yes. The music of the language.
and the intonation.
Exactly. The emotional tone.
So it's like learning a song by ear.
That's a great analogy.
And I imagine like with learning a song,
Yes.
it's best to start small and gradually increase the complexity.
Absolutely. Don't try to shadow an entire movie right away.
So maybe start with a short scene or a few sentences from a podcast.
Exactly.
What other tips do you have for effective shadowing?
Pay close attention to the speaker's pronunciation stress and intonation. Try to mimic not just the sounds, but also the way they emphasize certain words and phrases.
Got it. So it's about embodying the language, not just reciting it.
You got it.
And I imagine recording yourself while shadowing and listening back
Yes. That's a great way to get feedback.
would be really helpful.
It's like having a personal pronunciation coach in your pocket.
I love that.
So the more you practice shadowing, the more you'll start to internalize the sounds and rhythms of English.
And that will make our own speaking more natural and fluent.
Exactly.
This is great stuff. But what about those of us who are still building our vocabulary and grammar skills?
Right. Good question.
Can we still start speaking with confidence, even if we don't have a vast repertoire of words and phrases?
Absolutely. You don't need to wait until you have perfect grammar or a huge vocabulary.
Okay, that's encouraging.
The series really emphasizes the power of mastering simple, everyday phrases.
So the building blocks of conversation.
Exactly.
So even if I'm not comfortable launching into a complex discussion,
Yeah,
I could still practice speaking
absolutely.
by focusing on those basic phrases we use in everyday interactions.
Exactly. Things like greetings, introductions, asking for directions, ordering food, expressing simple opinions.
So it's like having a toolbox of essential phrases that
Exactly.
we can pull out whenever we need them.
Right there at your fingertips.
And the more we use them, the more confident and comfortable we'll feel.
Exactly. Practice makes perfect.
Repetition is key.
It is.
Okay, so we've got shadowing
Yes.
and mastering those everyday phrases.
What else?
What other techniques can we use to kind of overcome that initial hesitation
Oh, the hesitation. Yeah, that can be tough.
and get those words flowing more smoothly?
So one technique the series suggests is recording yourself speaking English.
Recording myself. Oh, wow.
Okay. Choose a topic you're interested in,
Okay.
maybe something you read about recently,
Uh-huh.
and try speaking about it for a few minutes.
So I become my own personal podcaster.
Huh. Exactly.
Okay. I'm not sure the world is ready for that.
It doesn't have to be podcast worthy.
Oh,
The idea is to create a low pressure environment
okay.
where you can practice speaking without feeling self-conscious.
Okay. I like that.
And the beauty of recording yourself is that you can listen back.
Oh, the playback, that's always scary.
It can be, but it's so valuable.
And get objective feedback on your pronunciation, fluency, and clarity.
Exactly. You can hear
Yeah.
what you need to work on.
It's like having a mirror for your speech.
It is. You can see yourself from a different perspective.
What are some key things to listen for when reviewing these recordings?
Well, first, pay attention to your pronunciation. Are you pronouncing words clearly and correctly?
Okay, pronunciation, that's a big one.
If not, identify the tricky sounds and practice them.
So pinpoint those problem areas.
Exactly.
Okay, what else?
Next, focus on your fluency. Are you speaking smoothly and confidently, or are you hesitating a lot?
Fluency, that's another big one.
If you're stumbling, practice those phrases until they flow naturally.
Okay, smooth it all out.
And experiment with different intonations and speeds to see what feels natural and expressive.
So play around with it a bit.
Exactly. Find your voice.
I like that.
Make the language your own.
So we've talked about rewiring our brains, building mental muscles, finding our voice in English.
A lot of metaphors.
What's actually happening in our heads when we learn a new language?
Oh, a question.
Is it really as transformative as it sounds?
It absolutely is. Learning a new language isn't just about memorizing vocabulary and grammar rules. It's about rewiring your brain to process and produce that language.
Rewiring our brains. Okay, I'm listening.
It's about forging new neural pathways and creating entirely new ways of thinking and expressing yourself.
Wow, that sounds pretty intense.
It is, but it's also incredibly exciting.
Can you break it down for us?
Sure.
What's actually happening in our brains when we're struggling to conjugate verbs or pronounce those tricky English sounds?
So your brain has these incredible networks of neurons.
Neurons, okay.
And every time you learn something new, you strengthen those connections or even forge new pathways.
So learning a language is like building new roads in our brains.
Exactly. Connecting the areas that handle vocabulary, grammar, pronunciation.
I love that analogy. It makes it so much easier to understand.
And speaking of pronunciation, there's this fascinating area of the brain called Broca's area,
Broca's area, okay.
which plays a key role in speech production.
So this is where our thoughts transform into spoken words. And you're saying that Broca's area needs training specifically for the language we're learning.
Yes. Simply understanding English doesn't activate those neural pathways in the same way that speaking does.
So even if I can understand spoken English, my brain still needs that specific workout to actually produce those sounds and sentences.
Exactly. It's like having all the ingredients for a delicious cake.
Ooh, cake.
But not knowing how to bake it, you need the recipe, the practice, to transform that knowledge into something amazing.
Another great analogy. I'm loving these.
They help make these complex processes more tangible, right?
Absolutely. And speaking of tangible,
Yes.
we've covered a lot of ground in this first part of our deep dive.
Yeah.
We've explored the importance of thinking in English,
Right.
the power of embracing mistakes, and some effective techniques for building confidence and fluency.
A lot of good stuff.
It's been a whirlwind of information,
It has.
but I'm feeling so much more motivated and equipped to tackle this challenge.
That's great to hear.
But before we wrap up this part of our conversation, there's one more crucial aspect of language learning
Oh, there's more.
that we need to delve into.
Okay, I'm right.
The psychological dimension.
Ooh, the psychology of language learning.
We've talked about overcoming the fear of making mistakes.
Yes, that's a big one.
But what other psychological factors come into play?
Well, it's about understanding and managing those mental barriers that can sabotage our progress.
Mental barriers, okay.
The limiting beliefs, the self-doubt, the negative self-talk.
We've all been there.
We have those moments when our brains know the words,
Right.
but our mouths just won't cooperate.
And we start to feel like we're never going to get it.
Exactly. It's that disconnect between knowledge and action.
It's frustrating.
It is. And bridging that gap is often more about psychology than mechanics.
So it's not just about learning the rules and practicing the techniques, but also about cultivating the right mindset.
You got it. Mindset is key.
I'm starting to see a theme here.
It's all connected.
In the next part of our deep dive, we'll unpack the power of mindset and explore specific strategies for overcoming those mental barriers.
Can't wait.
We'll talk about setting realistic expectations, defining personal fluency, and cultivating a growth mindset
It's going to be good.
that empowers us to embrace challenges and celebrate those small wins along the way.
I'm excited.
Until then, our listeners can start implementing some of the techniques we've discussed today.
Yes. Get started.
Remember, every step, no matter how small, brings you closer to your language goals.
One step at a time.
And most importantly, have fun with the process.
Always have fun.
See you in part 2, Language Explorers.
Bye for now. Welcome back to our deep dive on speaking English.
Okay, part 2, let's do this.
We're picking up where we left off.
Right, all about the mental game.
Yeah, all the psychology.
I gotta admit, I've had my fair share of moments where I just felt like giving up, you know?
Oh, tell me about it.
Like, no matter how much I practiced, I just wasn't making progress.
That's so common, though. It happens to everyone at some point.
So what do we do when we hit that wall?
That's where mindset comes in.
Okay, mindset, I'm all ears.
It's basically how we approach challenges, how we view our progress, and how we stay motivated when things get tough.
It's that inner voice, right?
Exactly. That inner voice can either be our best friend or our worst enemy.
So it's not just about having the right techniques, but also about cultivating that I can do this attitude.
Exactly. You got it.
Okay. I'm starting to see the light.
Good. And one of the most important aspects of mindset
Yeah.
is setting realistic expectations.
Oh, I've definitely learned this the hard way.
We all have.
I remember when I first started learning Italian, I thought I'd be fluent in a few months.
Oh, yeah, the fluency myth.
What a joke, right?
It's easy to fall into that trap,
It is.
especially with all the learn a language fast gimmicks out there.
They're everywhere.
But the truth is, learning a new language takes time and effort.
It does.
It's not like building a skyscraper overnight.
You can't just snap your fingers and boom, you're fluent.
If only it were that easy.
So it's about finding that balance between ambition and patience.
Yes, you want to challenge yourself, but you also need to be kind to yourself.
Give ourselves a break.
And acknowledge that real progress takes time.
So true.
And that leads us to the concept of personal fluency.
Okay, personal fluency. Tell me more about that.
Our source material really emphasized this idea. It's basically the idea that fluency isn't a one-size-fits-all destination.
Okay, so it's not just about sounding like a native speaker.
Not necessarily. It's a journey that looks different for everyone.
So we should define what fluency means to us personally.
Exactly. What are your goals for learning English?
Good question.
What situations do you want to navigate with ease?
I like that.
Is it about traveling, working in an international environment, or simply connecting with more people?
So fluency for travel is going to look different than fluency for giving a presentation at a conference.
Exactly. You need different skills for different situations.
So by defining our personal fluency goals, we can tailor our practice.
Yes, and celebrate achievements that are meaningful to us.
Speaking of celebrations, we talked earlier about the power of small wins.
Oh, yeah. Those small wins are so important.
They're like little bursts of motivation.
Exactly. They remind us that we're making progress.
But how do we actually shift our focus to appreciate those wins?
Good question. It's easy to get caught up in what we still don't know.
We're our own worst critics.
It's a conscious effort, a mental shift.
Okay, so we need to train ourselves to notice and acknowledge those moments of progress.
Exactly, no matter how small they might seem.
Like, well, give me some examples.
It could be anything from nailing a tricky pronunciation,
Oh, yeah, that feels good.
using a new phrase in conversation, or understanding a podcast without subtitles.
Those are all wins.
Every little victory counts.
It's about giving ourselves credit for how far we've come.
Exactly, instead of beating ourselves up for what we haven't mastered yet.
That's so important. I think we all need to hear that.
It's about shifting from a mindset of scarcity to a mindset of abundance.
I love that, from what we lack to what we've already achieved.
That's the key.
Mindset shift. It's like a mental detox.
Exactly. Clearing out the negativity and making space for positivity.
I like it.
And that positive perspective is crucial for building resilience.
Okay, resilience. I'm sensing another key ingredient here.
It's essential for language learning.
So you mean the ability to bounce back from setbacks?
Exactly, and keep going even when it gets tough.
Because, let's be honest, language learning is not always a walk in the park.
It's not. There will be moments of frustration, discouragement, and the temptation to give up.
Oh yeah, those moments are real.
But it's those who persevere through those challenges who ultimately succeed.
So it's not about avoiding mistakes, but about developing that mental toughness to embrace them.
Exactly. Mistakes are part of the process.
They're opportunities for growth.
I like that failures as opportunities.
Yeah, that takes this thing out of it.
It does. It reframes the whole experience.
So how can we build that resilience muscle?
One of the best ways is to find your tribe.
Find our tribe.
Okay, I'm intrigued.
Surround yourself with a supportive community.
Other language learners.
Exactly. People who understand your struggles and can cheer you on.
Like a cheering section.
Exactly.
I love that.
So connect with other learners, join online forums, find a language partner.
It's all about connection.
We're not alone on this journey.
It's a global community.
It is Millions of people around the world are learning languages right now.
That's amazing to think about.
We're all connected by this shared passion for language and communication.
And speaking of connection,
Yes.
I want to talk about gratitude.
Gratitude. Oh, that's a good one.
It's something that I think can really help with mindset.
Absolutely.
But how does gratitude apply to language learning?
Well, when we practice gratitude, we shift our focus from what we lack to what we already have.
Okay, so instead of dwelling on all the words we don't know,
Right.
we appreciate how far we've come.
Exactly. And all the progress we've already made. And in the context of language learning, there's always something to be grateful for.
There is.
We can be grateful for the opportunity to learn,
Absolutely.
to connect with different cultures.
To expand our horizons.
And we can be grateful for all the amazing resources we have available.
Yes, we live in a time where learning a new language is more accessible than ever before.
So true online courses,
Yeah.
language exchange apps, podcasts like this one.
Exactly. There's a wealth of resources out there.
And when we approach language learning with that sense of gratitude,
Yes.
we're more likely to enjoy the process, stay motivated.
And persevere even when challenges arise.
It's about transforming the experience
Exactly.
from a chore to an adventure,
I like that.
from frustration to joy and fulfillment.
That's the goal.
And that joy and fulfillment is what fuels our progress.
It does. It keeps us going.
I'm feeling so inspired right now.
Good. I'm glad.
This deep dive has been amazing.
It's been fun.
We've explored practical tools, the mental game, and the power of connection.
It's all connected.
I hope our listeners are feeling fired up and ready to take their English speaking skills to the next level.
I hope so too.
And we've got one more part to go.
We do the grand finale.
Can't wait to see what other gems of wisdom you have in store for us.
Oh, I've got some good stuff coming up.
Until then, keep practicing, keep learning, and keep that positive mindset burning bright.
You got it.
Welcome back to our final part of this deep dive, all about finding your voice in English.
I can't believe we're already at part 3.
It's flown by, but I feel like we've uncovered so much good stuff.
We have covered a lot of ground, haven't we?
But you know what's really hitting home for me is this
What's that?
whole idea of mindset.
Mindset. Oh, yeah.
It's like the foundation of everything.
It really is the bedrock of successful language learning.
It's not just about grammar rules and vocabulary lists.
No, it's about how we approach the whole process.
It's about embracing the messiness, the challenges, the inevitable mistakes.
And learning from them.
Yeah, turning those stumbles into stepping stones.
Exactly. It's a journey of growth, not perfection.
I remember when I first started learning German, I was so afraid of making mistakes.
Oh, I know that feeling.
Like I would overthink every sentence, terrified of sounding stupid.
I think we've all been there.
It sucked the joy out of learning.
It does. It creates so much unnecessary pressure.
It's that perfectionist mindset, right?
Yeah, wanting to sound like a native speaker right from the get-go.
Which is unrealistic.
Totally unrealistic. Language learning is a process. It takes time.
And it's about embracing those imperfections.
It is. It's about progress, not perfection.
I love that, progress, not perfection.
It's a good mantra to remember.
And you know what else really resonated with me from our source material?
What's that?
This concept of defining personal fluency.
Ah, yes. Such an important idea.
It's like we get so caught up in this idea of fluency as this ultimate destination.
Right, like you either have it or you don't.
But fluency is a journey.
It is. It's personal. It's unique to each individual.
And it's shaped by our own goals and motivations.
Exactly. So instead of striving to sound exactly like a BBC newsreader,
Right.
we can define what fluency means to us.
Based on our own needs and aspirations.
If your goal is to travel comfortably, your fluency might focus on basic conversations, ordering food, asking for directions.
But if you're aiming to work in an international business environment,
Your fluency goals might involve mastering more complex vocabulary and grammar,
it's about tailoring our approach to our unique circumstances.
and celebrating those milestones that align with our personal definition of success.
Speaking of celebrations,
Oh, yes, celebrations.
we've talked so much about the power of acknowledging those small wins.
They're like fuel for our motivation, aren't they?
They really are. It's so easy to get bogged down in what we haven't mastered yet.
It is. We can be so hard on ourselves.
But when we shift our perspective and start noticing those little victories,
Those small wins.
they make all the difference.
It does. It boosts our confidence and keeps us moving forward.
Whether it's using a new phrase correctly,
Or understanding a native speaker without subtitles.
or even just nailing that tricky pronunciation,
It all counts.
every little bit of progress is worth celebrating.
Absolutely. It shows that we're on the right track.
And don't forget the power of community.
Oh, yes. The community is crucial.
Surrounding ourselves with other language learners.
Language partners, online groups.
From having a built-in support system.
Exactly. A group of cheerleaders who get it.
Because they're going through the same struggles and celebrating the same victories.
It's a shared journey.
And it reminds us that we're not alone.
No, we're all in this together.
Millions of people around the world are learning languages right now.
It's a global community connected by this shared passion for language and communication.
I love that. And at the end of the day, that's what it's all about, right?
It is connecting with others, expressing ourselves, sharing our ideas with the world.
And that's what this deep dive has really brought home for me.
Me too. It's been a reminder of why we do this.
It's not just about memorizing grammar rules or sounding perfect.
No, it's about something much bigger.
It's about connecting with the world around us.
And expanding our horizons.
So to all our amazing listeners out there.
Yes, you incredible language learners.
Remember, speaking English is a skill that can be learned.
Absolutely.
It takes practice, dedication.
And a positive mindset.
Embrace the journey. Celebrate your wins.
And never be afraid to make mistakes.
Keep those words flowing.
And most importantly,
have fun along the way.
Always have fun.
This has been The Deep Dive. Thanks for joining us.
It's been a pleasure.